So, in our last class we have been discussing about stages in demand paging. So, just to recapitulate the thing and to understand it in a better fashion. So, when a page fault occurs, so when a processor tries to access one memory location and that particular page is absent in the memory. So, what happens is that it generates a trap to the operating system. So, this trap is defined by the processor designers. So, when some exceptional situation occurs, so that is actually informed to the operating system that okay, exceptional situation has occurred, the page is not available. So, there may be trap generated for different situations, like page fault is one of them, then divide by 0 is another one. So, like that there are many cases in which the trap may be generated. So, first thing is that whenever a trap occurs, so and it is an exceptional situation. So, some exception service has to be initiated. So, to do that, first the user registers and the process state they are saved in the stack, and then the system decides that the interrupt that or the exception that it got is a page fault. So, after that, after it has been decided that it is a page fault, then the processor the operating system will check that the page reference was legal and determine the location of the page on the disk. Now, when a page is absent or a memory location is absent in the physical memory, so there may be two situations. One case is that the page the address generated by the process is wrong. So, it is outside the address space of the process. So, as a result it is an error. Other possibility is that the reference is valid, but the page is not present in the memory. So, first thing that has to be checked is whether the address belongs to the address range of the process. So, that is done and it checks whether the reference was legal or not. If the reference is legal, then it tries to determine the location of the page on the disk, because now the page will be available in the swap space. So, the operating system tries to find out the location or find out the swap space sector number where the particular page is located. And once it has been determined, that sector address has been determined, then it issues a read IO from the disk to a free frame. Now, there may be a situation like so in the memory the page there may be some frames free. So, accordingly it will determine a free frame, and then it will after determining the free frame. So, it will wait for the disk to complete the IO operation, so that the page is transferred from the swap space to the free frame. So, in the process what happens is that the process that was executing, so that cannot proceed anymore. So, it will wait in a queue for this device until the read request is serviced. So, and so it will wait for the read request to be over, and as we know that this data transfer is done by means of some direct memory access sort of controller, DMA controller. So, the process cannot proceed further. So, it has to wait till the read request has been serviced. It wait for the device seek and or latency time. So, the disk head has to go to proper sector address, and then only for that it will require some seek time and some latency time. So, we will see them while discussing on the disk, and after that it starts transferring the page to a free frame. So, this whole thing is normally done by the DMA controller, and once the DMA controller is done with the transfer, so it informs the CPU that the transfer is over. So, while waiting, the CPU is idle. So, CPU can better be given to some other users or some other process. So, that is what is done. The short term scheduler comes into existence, and it schedules the next ready job to be to run in the CPU, and the process which generated the page fault is now in the blocked state. So, after some time the disk transfer will be over. As a result, it will receive an interrupt from the disk IO subsystem that the IO operation is over, and then now this process has to be since this is again an interrupt. So, whichever process is running now, so for that it has to save the registers and process state, and then again the interrupt service for the disk has to be initiated. So, the OS determines that the interrupt received is from the disk, and accordingly it has to initiate the disk transfer, initiate the corresponding action. So, what is the action now? Now, the page has been transferred. So, now my page table has to be updated. So, previously the page table corresponding to this particular page, the entry was marked invalid. Now, that frame number to which the page has been copied, so that is noted down in the page table, and the page table entry is marked as valid. So, that is the correct the page table and other tables to show that the page is now in memory, and then the process is in the ready state. So, it was in a blocked state. When the page table has been corrected, then the process makes a transition to the ready state. Now, again after some time the short term scheduler will possibly pick up this process for running. So, when it will be CPU, it will be waiting for the CPU to be allocated to the process again, and then when this process restarts. So, before that it has to restore user registers, process state and new page table, and then only it can resume the interrupted instruction. So, you see there is a big piece of job that has to be done when a page fault occurs. So, naturally the process that created that faced the page fault has to be withdrawn from the CPU, and it will go to the blocked state and it will start after some time. So, the prediction like how much time a process may take in a demand in this virtual memory environment, so that is a question. Okay. So, we cannot have a straightforward answer, because when the disk IO will be complete, so that is not deterministically determinable. So, naturally we cannot say like when the process will finish. So, that is a big problem with this virtual memory type of environment, but at the same time it gives us the flexibility that the user, the logical address space of a program can be huge. Okay. So, that is the advantage it provides. So, though we compromise on the performance side, but the other flexibility like size and all, so that makes it very much important one for this memory management policies. And most of the modern operating systems, so they will support this virtual memory and perhaps the more complex versions of that. Now, what is the performance of demand paging? So, there are three major activities. One is the to service the interrupt. So, careful coding means just several hundred instructions needed. So, for servicing, so if we are writing that interrupt service routine carefully, then also it will take about the hundreds of instructions. Then the next part is reading the page. So, this is actually the time that that is going to have a very high effect on the that is going to have a very high effect on this overall timing, because this is the disk to memory transfer, and there are two issues. First of all, that the disk controller may be busy doing many other operations. So, that is many other requests it was servicing. So, that request whatever generated by this process, so that is in a queue. So, that is one problem, and the second problem is that disk access by itself is much slower than the memory access or the CPU operation, because disk is an electromechanical device. So, that takes a lot of time. So, reading the page, so this is the most time consuming part in the whole operation, and after that, after the page has been transferred, restarting the process. So, this is again a small amount of time. Okay. So, this is not that large. So, if we assume that a page fault rate is p, then p can be a value between 0 and 1. So, p equal to 0, that means there is no page fault, and p equal to 1 means every reference is a page fault. So, this is the page fault rate, that is per how many pages you have, how many page faults occur per page, per reference. So, if p equal to 1, then per reference, per memory reference there is a page fault. Now, what is the effective access time? So, if there is no page fault, so this 1 minus p multi, in that case the page is present in the memory. So, that is memory access time, plus if there is a page fault and whose probability is p. So, this is page fault overhead, swap page out plus swap page in. So, there are three cases. In fact, in the previous discussion that we were doing, so basically we said that there are memory frames, and when a page fault has occurred, we assume that some frame is free, maybe this was a free frame, but in reality what can happen is that maybe while looking for the free frame, we may find that no frame is free, all the frames are occupied by some valid pages. In that case, we have to make some frame free. Okay. So, what we can do? So, if all the pages are occupied, maybe we have to select one particular page and that page we swap out and write it or write onto the disk space, onto the swap space we write it, and then then this page becomes free, and then we swap in the actual the needed page here. So, that way we have got a page swap out time and a page swap in time. So, both the times may be there. So, they instead of doing only a disk read, only say this operation. So, it may be there is a disk write also. So, there may be another operation that is that it will try to write onto write to disk. So, this operation may also be required when we have got this none of the memory frames are free. So, this is there. So, that way it takes this demand paging performance, effective access time becomes governed by this particular formula. So, next we will try to look into an example that will tell us how this EAT can grow. Suppose the memory access time is 200 nanoseconds and average page fault service time is 8 milliseconds. Then effective access time is 1 minus p into 200 plus p into 8 millisecond. So, that is there should be a bracket here, bracket is missing. So, basically in this formula, so if you substitute, so it becomes 200 plus 7 p into 7999800. Now, if we, so it all depends on the page fault rate p. So, if we assume that this 1 out of 1000 memory accesses cause a page fault on an average. So, if that is the scenario, then the effective access time becomes 8.2 microseconds. So, while the memory access time was only 200 nanosecond, in the virtual memory environment, the effective memory access time is becoming 8.2 microseconds. So, that is a significant increase in the memory access time. So, this is a slowdown by a factor of 40. So, naturally this is a very high page fault rate. Okay. So, if we want that the performance degradation should be less than 10%. So, in that case this 200 nanosecond is the actual time. So, if I allow 10% degradation, so that is 220. So, this whole expression should be less than 220, or it gives rise to the equation that p should be less than 0.5000025. So, one page fault per 400,000 memory access. So, that is a very low rate of page fault. So, page fault rate should be very low. So, if we want that the performance degradation will be very small. So, that is that example shows that we have to do something so that this page fault rate becomes pretty low. So, that is actually we have to think about like the how many pages of a process be loaded, then which pages do we load into memory. So, all these decisions, so they are going to affect this EAT computation, and if we really want that the EAT should be EAT degradation should be low, then the page fault rate should also be very low. So, we will look into that how this is addressed too in this demand paging environment. So, demand paging, so this is the optimizations that we can do in demand paging environment are like this. First of all, the swap space IO faster than file system IO even if on the same device. So, we have to we said that the swap space where these process pages are loaded, so they are in the disk. Now, this particular disk is known as the swap space or swap disk. Now, this disk, even if it is so in the disk we have got some portion defined as swap space, and we have got the other portion which holds the normal file system. Now, they are held on the same disk. So, raw speed if you try to compare, then both of them access to both the types of regions. So, they will have the same timing. However, what we can do, we can make this block size of this swap space to be larger than the block size of the file system. So, block size means in one transfer how many bytes are transferred to the main memory. or when you are transferring from memory to disk, how many bytes are transferred per access. So, normally maybe my for my file system, that block size may be say 4 kilobyte, and while for the swap space, so this is made 8 kilobyte. Okay. And as we will see while going to this the disk IO, so you will see that for accessing every block, so there is a seek time and there is a latency time that is that will come, and that is actually the time needed for the mechanical movement of the read write head. So, that is one of the major times. So, after the disk has been the disk head has been aligned to the proper sector, the data transfer starts, and that is pretty fast. Okay. So, if my block size is small, that means I have to do that disk head alignment several times. So, if the block size of swap space is double of that of file system, then naturally number of that read write head alignment will be half of the case that we have in the file system. So, swap space is allocated in larger chunks, so that this disk read write head alignment is less, and less management needed than file system, because we do not so we make the system much more simpler. For file system, one important requirement is that the file should be easily accessible. So, accessing a particular file, searching for a particular file, so that makes it complex, and this file system is organized in such a fashion that this access or the searching becomes easy. Whereas, in case of the swap space, that is not the case. So, we have to just locate the corresponding blocks for the process. So, we can just keep it like that, and this is temporary. Once the process is over, all the blocks will be released. Okay. So, that we do not need to remember it forever, unlike file system where a file is resides there for some for quite a good amount of time, or maybe for the entire lifetime of the system. So, that way the managing the file system is more tricky, and it has to be more efficient than managing the swap space. So, so naturally this swap space management being simpler, so the access is going to be faster. So, swap space IO is faster than file system IO, even if they are located on the same disk. Then the second thing is that copy entire process image to swap space at process load time. So, what is done, like if this is my if this is the disk, then in the disk I have got the process, some program is there, say program name is ABC. So, this ABC, the executable version of this ABC, so this is there in the file system of the disk. Now, what we do is that at the very beginning, this entire ABC is copied onto the swap space also, so that after initiating whatever copy or read write is made, so they are made from the swap space only. So, we do not need to refer to the original file ABC in the disk, so in the file system. So, this copy of copy entire page entire process image to swap space at process load time. So, this is very important. So, that makes the situation that in future we can access directly from the swap space only, we do not need to refer to the file system. So, page in and out of swap space. So, wherever we need this we need to write a page back to the disk. So, we write to the swap space, and whenever we need to load a page from the disk, so we will actually load it from the swap space, and this is used in older version of BSD Unix. Another point that we have to note is the demand page, demand paging from program binary on disk, but discard rather than paging out when freeing the frame. So, demand page means that we do not copy all the pages of the program. So, only a few pages are loaded, and as and when it is demanded, so it is copied from the disk. So, that way also this is from program binary on disk. So, they are copied, but after that if the page is no more required, so we do not write it back. So, until and unless it is absolutely necessary, we do not write back the memory frame to the corresponding page in the secondary storage. So, this is used in Solaris and current version of BSD. Still need to write to swap space, because pages not associated with a file like stack or heap. So, that is so as you know that when we take the executable version of a program in the disk, then we do not have these two spaces like the local variables and this dynamically created variables. So, they are non-existent at that time. So, they do not have any corresponding memory location. So, but when the process starts running, this stack and heap, so they are also allocated space. So, that way it is useful. So, that those blocks, so they are also to be written onto the swap space. Okay. So, the pages not associated with a file, so they need to be written, and we call it anonymous memory, because in the executable version of the file, so they are non-existent. Then pages modified in memory, but not yet written back to the file system. So, some values have been modified, but it is not yet written onto the disk. So, those pages, so if we want to swap out, then those pages are to be written to the swap space. So, that way we still need to write to this disk space. Okay. So, that has to be there. So, we cannot omit this swap space altogether. So, the type of approach that we follow. So, similarly this demand paging in mobile systems. So, in mobile systems, so they typically do not support swapping. Instead, demand page from the file system and reclaim read only pages such as code. So, this is in mobile devices, we do not have a very large disk. So, that is so we cannot, we do not support swapping. So, it is directly made from the file system, and the read only pages such as code, so they are overwritten, because they need not be written back onto the disk. Then another very important concept that we have is the copy on write. So, copy on write, it allows both parent and child processes to initially share the same pages in memory. So, as we know that whenever the Unix or Linux system, this type of operating system, so the fork system call is executed, then this parent and child, they share the same code. Okay. So, they initially share the same pages and in the memory. If either process modifies the shared page, only then is the page copied. So, whenever there is a write operation on the page, so then a copy is made. So, this copy on write type of principle, so this is useful. So, if both the processes, they are only doing some read operation, they are not doing any write operation, then naturally we do not have to do anything. So, both the processes can continue. But if one process wants to modify something, then there is a problem, and in that case we have to we have to create a new page and allocate it to the process. So, that way the shared pages are modified. So, only then the page will be copied onto the secondary storage. This copy on write allows more efficient process creation, as only modified pages are copied. So, other pages will not be there, will not be copied. So, they will be shared. In general, free pages are allocated from a pool of 0 fill on demand pages. So, pages whose content has been zeroed out before allocation. So, free pages will be allocated. So, we have to have some pool of free pages, and then whenever a demand comes for this free page, so it is allocated from that pool. Pool should always have free frames for fast demand page execution, and do not want to have to free a frame as well as other processing on page fault. So, since they are coming from a free pool, so we do not have to return that particular frame. So, pool should always have free frames for fast demand page execution. So, if we have free frame, then naturally I do not have to write back anything, and if we do not want to have to free a frame as well as other processing on page fault. So, you do not have to write back. Then there is a vfork, which is a variation of this fork system call, has parent suspend and child using copy on write address space of parent. So, this is parent process will get suspended, and the child process, it will be using a copy on write address space. So, basically if there is a write, in that case only this parent address space will be copied to a new page, and child will modify it. Otherwise, child will modify the parent address space only. So, designed to have child call exec. So, the child process can call exec also, and if it calls exec, then this entire address space gets overwritten for by the child. So, naturally we do not have to create separate address space for the child, and it is very efficient because this memory copy and all that are not required. So, next we see like how this can be utilized. So, suppose before process 1 modifies page C. So, process 1 and process 2, so they were sharing the pages page A, page B and page C. So, they are page tables, they are pointing to the same like this, and after process 1 modifies page C, then we have to give it a copy of page C. So, copy of page C is given, and now this page table pointer points to the copy, whereas the original process 2. So, it is pointing to the original page. So, this is the copy on write type of principle. So, once the copy is made, in that case we have to once we have to do a write operation or modifying a page. So, we have to do a copy of that. Next very important issue in this virtual paging environment or demand paging environment is the concept of page replacement. So, page replacement means when we want to load a new page into a free frame. So, it may so happen that there is no frame free. So, in that case we have to select one of the pages which is currently occupying some memory frame to be taken out of the memory, and some new frame, a new page should be allocated that particular frame. So, this page replacement occurs when a page fault occurs and we need to bring the desired page into the memory. So, that is the page fault. So, this is the page replacement, at that time it will be required, and there are no free frames. So, under this situation, so we have to have this page replacement. So, the policy of page replacement is to find some page in memory, but not really in use. So, page it out. So, basically the situation is like this, that in my memory, so I have to a process has asked for a new page, but all these memory frames, so they are occupied. They are occupied by valid pages of other processes, that is there are no free frame. Now, I have to select one of these pages as the victim page, and whichever page we select, then that page has to be swapped out, and as a result this frame will become free, and there I will be able to load the new page. So, that is the policy of page replacement. So, find some page in memory, but which is ideally that is not really in use. So, it is there in the memory, but it is not being used by the processes. So, if we can find such a page, then we will put it back onto the swap space and free that frame, and we can load that load the new page that is required into that particular frame. So, we need some algorithm to decide which frame to free. So, that is a very important issue, like which frame we want to free. So, that has to be seen, and the performance. So, I want an algorithm which will result in minimum number of page faults. So, as we have seen that this number of page faults, so it is going to affect the performance of the system significantly. So, that has to be done. So, this the effective access time should not increase very much. So, for that this page fault rate should be low. So, this page replacement should be such that we are not replacing a page which will be required in near future. So, ideally I should be able to look into the future and understand like which page is not going to be referred to again in the near future. So, that page that particular page can be removed from the memory and the corresponding frame made available for loading the new page, but definitely looking into the future is not possible. So, we have to have some more realistic algorithm, and naturally that will affect the system performance. Some page may be brought into memory several times, same page may be brought into memory several times. So, it may so happen that, so at this point of time we have seen, suppose this was say page 1, this was say page 1. So, this is page 2, page 3, page 4 like that. Now, this page 2 we have swapped out. Okay. Now, it may so happen that at the very next time instant. So again there is a reference to a memory address which is actually in page 2. So again there is a reference to page 2. So that so since page 2 is not present now in the memory, so there will be a page fault. So again that page fault has to be serviced and it will take time for getting that page into memory. Again another another frame has to be determined whose page can be written back into swap space, and there we can load page 2. So this way the same page may be going out of memory, which had gone out of memory, may be coming back to memory after some time. So this may go on several times. So same page may be swapped out and swapped in several times. So if that thing happens, so if we are not very I should say judicious about selecting the page that is going out of this main memory, then what can happen is that it will very soon we will generate lots of page faults. Okay. So there are several algorithms that we are going to discuss that will be that are being used for this selecting the victim page, but whatever we do, our objective is to minimize the number of page faults. So we will continue with this discussion on this page replacement algorithms in the next class.
Hello students, my name is Rajesh Daya. I am assistant professor in the Department of Computer Science and Applications, Chhajju Ram Memorial Art College, Hisar. In this video, we will discuss short answer type questions on the topic of virtual memory part 2. These questions are on the basis of video lecture in which the resource person was Professor Shantanu Chattopadhyay. So let's start with the questions. Question number 1. What is the need of page replacement algorithms? Question number 2. How to calculate the performance of demand paging? Question number 3. How to optimize the demand paging? In the last question, what is dynamic memory access controller? So dear students, try to read the questions carefully and answer them accordingly. Thank you very much students.